What if NATO collapsed? What if the European Union and Turkey said, "We're out," and walked away from the most powerful military alliance in modern history? Would the world be safer, or on the brink of war? Today we explore this scenario and what it means for global power. Buckle up, because this is not just a what if, it's a question that echoes in real-world politics. Welcome to Breaking the Alliance. Breaking news: the European Union has formally announced its withdrawal from NATO, citing a need for strategic independence. In a parallel move, Turkey has declared its exit, calling for a new era of geopolitical alignment. What does this mean for the world? Stay with us as we analyze the global consequences. Let's start with the European Union. Why would they leave NATO? Well, tensions between the EU and the US have been growing for years. Military spending disputes, disagreements over foreign policy, and the desire for strategic independence have all played a role. Many European leaders argue they no longer need American protection. They want an independent military force, an EU army. But let's be real, NATO has kept Europe safe for over 70 years. Walking away from it means taking full responsibility for their own defense. That's a tall order. Here's the problem: the EU doesn't have a unified military command like NATO. Sure, they have individual armies, but integrating them into a single force is a logistical nightmare. Different weapons systems, different training programs, different languages, coordinating a defense strategy across 27 nations? That's not something you do overnight. And let's not forget nuclear deterrence. NATO's security umbrella includes American nuclear weapons and intelligence networks. Without NATO, the EU would need to develop its own nuclear deterrent, which is politically complicated. France has nukes, but would Germany, Italy, or Spain want them too? Would we see a European arms race? It's a possibility. Now let's talk about money. NATO's defense spending target is 2% of GDP, and most EU countries don't even hit that number. If they leave NATO, they'll have to massively increase military budgets. More tanks, more jets, more cyber defense. That means higher taxes, bigger defense industries, and possibly even conscription in some countries. Think about it: if Russia or another adversary pushes too hard, does the EU have the ability to respond without the US? And what about intelligence sharing? Right now, NATO allies benefit from shared data, satellite surveillance, and cybersecurity cooperation. A divided Europe would lose much of that. Even within the EU, there are serious fractures. Countries like Poland and the Baltic states, which rely heavily on NATO's protection against Russia, might not want to leave at all. Would we see a split between Western and Eastern Europe? Would some EU nations try to stay in NATO while others leave? The EU prides itself on unity, but security decisions like these could expose deep divisions. Now Turkey. This is where things get even more interesting. Turkey has always been NATO's wild card. Strategically, it's crucial. It controls the Bosporus Strait, the gateway between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean. It has the second largest army in NATO after the US. But politically, it's been drifting away for years. Disputes over Syria, tensions with Greece in the eastern Mediterranean, and its purchase of Russian S-400 missile systems have all strained its relationship with the alliance. Leaving NATO would be a bold move. But would it be the right one? Leaving NATO could mean Turkey starts forging new alliances. Maybe it cozies up to Russia, forming a powerful Eurasian bloc. Maybe it pivots to China, seeking economic and military cooperation. Maybe it even tries to create its own regional alliance, bringing in Middle Eastern nations to form a new power center. But here's the risk: Turkey leaving NATO doesn't guarantee it finds a better deal elsewhere. Russia and Turkey have a long history of rivalry. China might offer economic opportunities, but does Turkey really want to be dependent on Beijing? It's a high-stakes gamble. And what about NATO? Losing Turkey means losing military bases, strategic intelligence, and a foothold in the Middle East. The US and Europe would have to completely rethink their military presence in the region. Turkey, on the other hand, would have to decide whether it truly wants to go it alone or find new allies. It might try to assert dominance in its region, but would its neighbors welcome that? A post-NATO Turkey could become more aggressive in territorial disputes with Greece or more involved in conflicts in the Caucasus or North Africa. So, what happens to NATO? Well, it doesn't disappear, but it definitely changes. The US, UK, Canada, and a few Eastern European nations remain, but without Germany, France, and Turkey, NATO looks very different. The American military presence in Europe shrinks. Russia sees an opportunity. Maybe it increases pressure on the Baltic states. Maybe China, watching from afar, accelerates its moves in the Pacific. The world suddenly feels a lot less stable. This could also trigger a domino effect. Other NATO members might rethink their commitments. Does Poland stay in NATO if Germany leaves? Does Greece feel secure without the alliance, especially given its tensions with Turkey? Do the Baltic states, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, start looking for alternative security guarantees? The fragmentation of NATO could lead to the rise of smaller, regional alliances, but none of them would have the same power and deterrence that NATO provides. In the United States, the political reaction would be intense. Would Washington double down on military spending to maintain its global influence, or would it scale back and focus solely on domestic concerns? The idea of an isolationist America withdrawing from Europe and turning its attention fully to China isn't out of the question. If that happens, Europe would have no choice but to step up. So, what does all of this mean? If NATO weakens, the balance of power shifts dramatically. The US would likely turn more attention to Asia, focusing on countering China. Europe would be left to figure out its own security arrangements. Russia might test its new leverage in Eastern Europe. The Middle East could see power vacuums that lead to new conflicts. We're looking at a world where old alliances are crumbling, and new ones are being built in their place. Does this lead to a more balanced world order, or does it push us toward global conflict? If Europe successfully builds a strong military force, it might create a multipolar world where power is shared more evenly. If it fails, we could see instability, new conflicts, and even the return of Cold War-style blocs. So, is NATO's collapse a realistic scenario? Maybe not today, but the cracks in the alliance are visible. From internal disagreements to shifting global power, we're living in a world where anything could happen. The global order is changing. How fast and how dramatically, only time will tell. What do you think? Would Europe and Turkey be better off outside NATO, or would this be a disaster? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us next time on Breaking the Alliance.